Cinema in minutes. In today's video, we will be going through an action-adventure film entitled The Expendables 3. There will be spoilers ahead, chill out and enjoy. The movie begins with Barney Ross and his Expendables, Lee Christmas, Gunnar Jensen, and Toll Road extracting a former member, Dr. Death, a knives specialist, and team medic, from a military prison during his transfer on a train. As they get out Doc Death from his cage, Doc Death immediately runs and kills every guard on the train. Afterward, he speeds up the train to hit the wall of the military prison. While finishing what he is doing, Christmas suddenly tells Ross to forget and leave him, but Ross refuses to agree. Then he calls Doc Death again to get into the helicopter. As Ross waits for Dr. Death to jump over the aircraft, Dr. Death bombs the military prison then escapes. Later, Ross recruits Dr. Death to assist them in intercepting a shipment of bombs to the warlord in Somalia. While they are on the ship, Ross assures Christmas about Dr. Death being a good medic and an expendable. Afterward, Dr. Death walks toward them as Ross reveals that he's not going home as they're going to stop a dealer named Victor Mins from delivering a shipment of thermobaric bombs. Ross and the Expendables reunite with Hail Caesar, who directs them to the drop point upon Somalia. Afterward, they begin hunting the leader on the ship while they gradually kill the men on guard. To Ross's surprise, he finds out that the arms trader providing the bombs is Conrad Stonebanks, a former co-founder of the Expendables who went rogue and was presumed dead. Suddenly, in the ensuing firefight, Ross and the Expendables kill all of the men and chase Stonebanks, but Stonebanks shoots Caesar twice and drops a glide bomb on them from his helicopter, having them no choice but to retreat. Sadly, Caesar gets severely injured. In the United States, Ross and the Expendables visit Caesar, who is in critical condition because of the explosion. While inside the hospital room, Ross drops the ring beside his table to bring him luck for fast recovery. Afterward, he leaves the room when suddenly Arnold approaches him and reminds him to stay out of business, yet, Ross refuses to agree. Ross then walks out of the hospital. As Ross leaves the hospital, CIA operative Max Drummer, the Expendables' new mission manager, meets him. Drummer introduces himself and tells Ross that Church is already out of the picture. Ross then tells him that Church said that the target's name is Victor Minnesota, but Victor Minnesota's real name is Stonebanks. So, Drummer answers that he doesn't care about the name and only wants to get him. Then, Drummer gives Ross a mission to capture Stonebanks and bring him to the International Criminal Court for war crimes. Later, Ross talks with the Expendables. Unfortunately, Ross blames himself for Caesar's injuries. Then he tells them that they are not the future anymore, and unfortunately for them, they are already part of the past. Everyone remains silent, but suddenly, Christmas asks if Ross is going somewhere with his speech. So, Ross reasons out that he won't live taking them with him and that they should change things from now on. Ill-advisedly, Ross disbands the Expendables and immediately leaves the bar. Christmas tries to change Ross' decision, but unfortunately, he fails. Afterward, Ross leaves for Las Vegas, where he enlists retired mercenary turned recruiter Bonaparte to help him find a new team of younger mercenaries. Without hesitation, Bonaparte leads the way for Ross' new team. Eventually, Bonaparte travels with Ross to introduce the recruiters to him in different locations. So, now, Ross's new team includes nightclub bouncer Luna and computer expert Thorne. Then, when they arrive in Arizona, they meet skilled sharpshooter Galgo who fakes his resume, so Ross turns him down. As for the last, Bonaparte goes to the following location, which is Edwards Air Force Base, California, to meet weapons expert Mars. Then for the final candidate, Bonaparte arrives in Mexico with Ross. Then he introduces former U.S. Marine John Smiley, who finishes his wrestling game to earn money. At first, John shows hesitation to Ross about his offer, and so Ross thinks that they are just wasting his time talking to John and leaves. Then seconds later, John calls Ross's name and says that he's not wasting his time, meaning that he accepts Ross's offer to be part of his team. A while later, Ross engines his car when suddenly Drummer talks at the back and asks Ross about his vacation. But instead of answering Drummer's question, Ross asks about Stonebanks' whereabouts. So, Drummer says that Stonebanks in Bucharest and putting together a deal with some Albanian mobster. Ross only has 36 hours to catch Stonebank because he's back off the grid after that. Drummer then gives Ross a satellite map for the coordinates where Stonebanks will be. Afterward, Drummer drops an envelope as the agency's got a local safe house for him. The following day, the former Expendables meet the recruits and pick a fight, but Mars stops them. Then he tells all of them that it's just a job. So, Christmas orders the veteran Expendables to let go, but before they disappear, John says they are a bunch of has-beens still trying to be complicated. To their surprise, they suddenly stop walking and look at John. Then Christian tells John that he's young and dumb. As John tries not to fight with him, Christmas suddenly throws a knife at John, and luckily, John misses it. Then Doc Death sings as he smirks at John. Afterward, Christmas tells John to keep the knife as he will need it on their mission. Later, Ross and the recruits begin their mission. While on the plane, John asks Ross why they are capturing Stonebanks. Ross hesitates at first, but John keeps on asking, so he gives the file about Stonebanks to answer John's question. Meanwhile, the former Expendables spend their time on their own while Caesar's still recovering. The following day, Ross and the recruits begin their mission by positioning themselves in an office building where Stonebanks is staying. Fortunately, as Ross signals the recruits to perform, Stonebanks catches their attention. Afterward, Ross plans with the recruits on how they will capture Stonebank. So, Thorne shares his plan. First, he will hack the security grid central server, then bypass the motion detector lasers and biometric sensors. After that, he will override the surveillance video and CCTV systems to let them in. Luckily, Ross approves and starts their mission. Later at night, Ross and the recruits infiltrate an office building and have to kill a few men in the process as they enter. While on their mission, Thorne informs Ross that the buyer arrives in the building. So, the new recruiters continue sniping the men on guard while Stonebanks deal with Yoron Vada. As they talk, Ross radios his team to position themselves and then fire everyone, including Yoron Vara's buyer. Fortunately, Luna captures Stonebanks. In transit, Stonebanks taunts Ross and explains why he betrayed the Expendables. So, Ross talks, then he tells Stonebanks that he will break every bone in his body and drop what is left at The Hague when they stop. So, Stonebanks laughs and repeats the word, The Hague. Then he answers Ross that he's a war criminal and asks him if Ross can deliver him like a package. But Ross remains silent. So, Stonebanks exposes Ross about building Expendables and the marks they made. Then he says Ross hires Stonebanks' team and the whole gang to capture him. Yet, Ross, unfortunately, killed their brothers to stop Stonebanks from his dark business. Out of control, Ross nearly kills Stonebanks to shut him up, but, despite Stonebanks egging him on, Ross stands down. Then, unfortunately, Stonebanks activates his GPS tracker. Now, Stonebanks' men catch up to them and fire a missile at the team's van. Then Ross is thrown into a river because of Stonebanks' weapon, while Stonebanks' crew captures Smiley, Luna, Thorne, and Mars. Afterward, Stonebanks orders his men to find Ross. Ross kills Stonebanks' retrieval team and escapes on the river. Afterward, Ross finds himself in an abandoned place, sees one of his men, and leads him on their plane. While Ross is on the ship, Stonebanks sends him a video, challenging Ross to come after him and giving him his location in Asmanistan. He sees his recruits tied up as he watches, so Stonebanks gives him 48 hours to get them. While preparing to leave and mount a rescue alone, Galgo finds Ross and offers his services again. Luckily, Ross accepts it. As Ross engines the planes, the veteran Expendables appear to accompany him. So, Ross shouts through the window what they are doing, and then Christmas answers, saying that he's stupid enough to get himself into the mess and that they're the only ones crazy enough to get Ross out of it. Without any choice, Ross let his old team join him. Later, they arrive at the area and find the exact location where Stonebanks hides the recruits. While walking, Ross asks Galgo why his team let him go, telling the whole story. Afterward, they finally find the location. It's an abandoned 8-story building with no enemies on guard. Then a while later, they finally see the young mercenaries and rescue them, only to learn from Stonebanks that he rigs the place with explosives with only 45 seconds left for them to explode. So, Thorne immediately makes his way to save themselves. Thorne then uses a jammer device to delay the countdown, giving them just under half an hour before detonation. To Stonebanks' surprise, he orders the Asmanistan army to attack the building with full force, including tanks and attack helicopters. Meanwhile, as Thorne successfully jammed the device, Doc Death informs the Expendables that they are still in trouble as they see the enemies go on their way. Then suddenly, the young and veteran Expendables fight one another. So, Ross convinces them to work together to take down Stonebanks. Fortunately, all of them listen. Afterward, Ross shares his plan. They will break up into small groups and go out through the ground floor. As they move, the Asmanistan army also begins invading the building. Then later, the battle starts, the Expendables start firing and use their weapon to turn down the enemies. As they fight, Smiley almost falls on the hole with burning fire, but fortunately, he quickly grabs a rope not to let himself fall. Suddenly, Drummer and Trench arrive in a helicopter to help, alongside returning Expendables member Yin Yang. Now, the new and veteran members of the Expendables work together to kill Stonebanks' men. Meanwhile, Drummer successfully turns down Stonebanks' helicopter as Gunner and Smiley take the Asmanistan tank to fire the remaining enemies. On the other hand, Doc, Death and Christmas wrestle with the enemies inside the building. And when a second wave moves in, Smiley informs Ross that they got reinforcements. So, Ross radios Drummer about another wave coming. Drummer then lands on the building to evacuate the team as Ross reports everyone to get into the roof immediately. As everyone runs into the rooftop to get into Drummer's chopper, Stonebanks personally attacks Ross after shooting him down. Ross, unfortunately, gets shot as Stonebanks challenges him to finish the battle. Then, on the other hand, Drummer tries to radio Ross as he is the only one they have been waiting for. Yet, Drummer receives no messages from Ross. Meanwhile, Stonebanks orders Ross to lose the armor as he wants Ross to feel the gun inside his body. So, having been forced to remove the armor and his weapon, Ross and Stonebanks engage in hand-to-hand combat. Despite getting shot, Ross still manages to fight with Stonebank as he ignores Christmas' message to go into the chopper. Smiley shouts that the battery is only in 1% as they fight, yet Ross remains in combat with Stonebanks. Unfortunately, both are evenly strong, but Ross knocks down Stonebanks before they both reach their guns. As Stonebanks tries to shoot, Ross gets the better of him. Seconds later, Stonebanks questions Ross about delivering him to the International Criminal Court, but Ross coldly ends him with a gun in response. And when the battery of Thorn's device runs out of charge, Ross quickly runs as he sees the bombs explode inside the building. As Ross gets onto the rooftop, everyone thinks Ross falls as the building completely explodes, but when the chopper moves, they see Ross holding the rope that ties in the helicopter. The team makes it to Drummer's helicopter and flies away to safety as Ross clings to it from the outside. The movie ends with the Expendables celebrating at the bar as Caesar finally recovers from his wounds, and Ross officially accepts Smiley, Luna, Thorn, and Mars into the team. Then Drummer, on the other hand, talks with Ross, telling him that he never got Stonebanks into The Hague, but Ross answers that working with him has never been so bad and shakes hands. Afterward, Galgo approaches Ross to talk with him and convinces him to be on his team again. So, Ross shuts him up and says welcome aboard as a sign of being an official team member. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more videos like this and to help the channel grow.